Good day, you sexy internet travelers! Bailey here, and today we are back with episode 5 of Kuzu no Honkai. So let's dive in! Up until this episode, whilst watching Kuzu no Honkai, I've had this concern in the back of my head, fearing whether or not Kuzu no Honkai would arbitrarily assign some shallow, overused reason for Hanabi having feelings for Kanai, and even whether or not they would give her any reason at all. But that fear was entirely squelched with this episode. We learn that Hanabi's father left her faster than Trump's dignity, and in leaving her at such a young age, she never got a chance to form much of a relationship with him. Kanai comes along, and suddenly there's someone there to fulfill the role her father didn't, and she clings to this as much as possible. And this premise of Hanabi being attracted to the idea of a relationship with Kanai and having other relationships that are very toxic and unhealthy that stem from this absence of a father figure, I feel is very realistic. Now, I say this speaking exclusively from personal experiences and also what I've seen in my own family, and I'm only speaking in generalities here, but I would say that a lack of a father figure is an entirely realistic premise for a girl getting involved in unhealthy relationships. And I just wanted to specify this because I don't know how many people saw this episode and thought this premise was a bit of a stretch. It's not some unrealistic anime logic, it is actually a scenario which I have found to be unfortunately common in the US, and one I find to be much more realistic than retaining feelings for some random childhood friend. Now, after we are enlightened into Hanabi's feelings, Hanabi expresses how she is confused as to why Kanai hasn't been there for her recently as much as he used to be. And Kanai himself later explains to Manbear Pig that as Hanabi's teacher, he is trying to distance himself from her so that he treats all of his students the same. Unfortunately, I can't see Hanabi figuring this out anytime soon. Mugi's character was also elevated this episode, and we finally are starting to understand more of who he is bit by bit. Far too often is it in romance animes that the male main character is pretty much dumb as shit. And last episode it was hinting that Mugi might be completely oblivious, just like every other male character in a romance anime. But this episode portrayed explicitly well that he is anything but oblivious. He is very much aware of Minagawa's nature, and he sees through all of her seduction tactics, but as a result of this, he perceives her to be fragile and desperate, and instead of resenting her for it, he sympathizes with her, causing me to facepalm the fuck out of myself. And now not only is he perceptive of Minagawa's tactics, but he is also keen to the dynamics of Hanabi's personality. So I find this to be quite refreshing in the sense that this is very human of Mugi. If you are a human being of any decent intelligence, you are generally able to insightfully perceive and analyze the characteristics of others' personalities, which is a trait more neglected in anime than basic common sense is in Kim Jong-un's hamster brain. Now, a few things to note before talking about Manbear Pig. Number 1, Hanabi wakes up to Echon but sees Manbear Pig instead, a vision which I would say is perhaps mirroring who she is becoming. Number 2, after failing to have sex with him, Mugi asks Hanabi if she would like to start dating for real, which I found very strange, and even more strange is that he follows up with asking her if she's still a virgin, implying that he's at least somewhat non-sexually romantically interested in her and cares enough about whether or not she's having sexual affairs with other people to ask about it. Now on to Manbear Pig. She describes the ringing of the school bell to be dictative, speaking of how it dictates when you should arrive and when you should leave and when you should go to bed and when you should wake up, and she despises this because it cements a routine, and she says more than anything, she wants to break the mundane routine of life. And the breaking of that routine, she says, comes in the form of freedom. And her preface to this statement, speaking of her disdain for this dictative bell, I think is very evident as less of a disdain for a lack of freedom and a way to break a routine, and more evident as a disdain for not being in control and not having power. She wants power in her relationships, and she wants to be in control of the people around her. I think that the underlying attribute of her desire for freedom is an insatiable desire for power. And at the end of the episode, she exerts this quality of her personality exceedingly well in true man-bear piggishness. And passing Hanabi, she drops bombs and says that she had sex with Kanai. A move which I would say is probably the biggest bitch move of 2017. And keep in mind though, we don't even know if this is true. She's a sociopathic lunatic. She could be completely lying. But even if she is, it doesn't matter. Hanabi isn't going to approach Kanai about it, and in her fragile brain, she perceives herself to be inferior to Minagawa, so she is going to take that statement without a trace of doubt. And so, in the war between Minagawa and Hanabi, Man Bear Pig has struck first with a massive bomb. And I can't wait to see how Hanabi retaliates, but I am getting the vibe that this might go down similar to Bambi vs. Godzilla. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please share, like, and subscribe for more. And I actually just made a Kuzu no Honkai AMV, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So if that's something you're interested in, there's a link in the description. And as always, stay sexy, internet travelers.